Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. Joining me now is Chester Humphrey. He is one of the leading trade unionists in Grenada and the Caribbean and a political and social analyst. He's joining me now to talk about developments, Grenada finding itself in the crosshairs of what could be a war between Venezuela and the United States. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Grenada quietly admitting just yesterday, on the 9th of October, that the U.S. government has in fact asked Grenada to allow them to place military assets and personnel at the Morris Bishop International Airport temporarily. Grenada says it's considering the request by the United States. Not a hard no or a hard yes at this point, but that they are considering the request. As we know, there are building tensions and intensified military presence of the United States in the southern Caribbean, and the target appears to be Venezuela. How Grenada will decide to move on this matter is of critical concern and is attracting a lot of attention. Mr. Humphrey joins me now. He's also a former president of the Senate in Grenada. He joins me now so that we can get his thoughts on this development and Grenada's position in this geopolitical dynamic. Welcome to the program, Mr. Humphrey.
Well, welcome, Callistra. And let me, as a matter of important introduction, clarify one misstatement in your introduction. There is no war between Venezuela and the United States. Venezuela is not at war. The United States is threatening war against Venezuela. Let's be very clear on that.
And so the United States is threatening war on Venezuela, or so it appears. And in the midst of this, the Grenada government gets a request from the United States to house military assets, radar is what the Grenada government has said, and technical personnel that correspond with this equipment at the Morris Bishop International Airport, no less. What are the implications of this request?
Well, firstly, let's be clear that the American military buildup in the Southern Caribbean, just off the Venezuelan coast, has absolutely nothing to do with interdicting drugs. You don't send a nuclear armed submarine tipped with missiles, several destroyers, an entire fleet of F 16 aircraft with advanced tomahawks and other sorts of weapons to interdict fishing boats. The Trump administration has broken all international law by murdering persons on the high seas without giving them an opportunity to be heard by a court. If you are indeed interdicting drugs, then your Coast Guard is quite adequate to do that. The Americans have had a history of lying in respect of its intention before it goes to war. Of recent vintage, it lied in respect of its invasion of Iraq. It lied going way back to the Gulf of Tonkin incident in the early 60s when it prepared to replace the French and to invade Vietnam. It lied in the early days of the last century or sometime there before in the Cuban-American War when it blew up one of its own ships and accused the Spanish, I think, of doing it. So America has a long history of lying. It lied when it invaded Grenada. And so but this one has taken all of the prizes. I want you to recall what they did in respect to Panama. They brought Noriega without his presence, without any defense attorney. They got a puppet judge inside of the American jurisdiction, all right, to return an indictment for the possession and trafficking of drugs into the United States. The playbook is the same, and that's what they're doing. The whole world knows. So let's be clear. What Grenada is being invited to do is to be a partner in the invasion of a sovereign territory. We will be making a grave mistake if we if we set ourselves up to participate in the invasion of Venezuela. And let us call it clearly what it is. This has nothing to do with any interdiction of drugs. I hear a well pronounced and a well known drunk somewhere to the south of Grenada talking about interdicting and they welcome the United States. This has nothing to do with the interdiction of drugs. Absolutely nothing. You don't move all of these sophisticated military assets, including military radars, including repositioning your satellites in order to do what? Blow out of the waters a fishing boat with 5 or 6 people who are fishing. The Americans have provided no evidence that the 3 or so fishing vessels, small vessels, pirogues, that they have destroyed and murdered the people on board, that these people were indeed drug trafficking. I mean, I cannot understand. I mean, the excuse is so flimsy. You have announced that you're sending a massive flotilla into the Southern Caribbean to interdict drugs. Could you imagine that the police announced tonight, beginning 8 o'clock, from Belmont all along the Granans Road, we will be stopping cars to search for drugs? Do you think the people who are in the drug trade are going to be moving the drugs at that time? Come on, let's be serious. So that this claim that the small fishing boats with outboard engines that were blown up had drugs on them, the Americans have not presented the evidence to the world. They have murdered Venezuelan citizens. They have not presented the evidence to the Venezuelan state. All right, so we know just on the surface of it, without digging deep, that that is a contorted lie in order to wage war. And what we can expect to happen is that war will be declared on America, and Grenada will be a participant in facilitating this war. I mean, look at the following example.
We see.
If
Well,
I
let me jump in here to say we see the position that Trinidad and Tobago has taken. Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bissessar has um, rolled out the red carpet, so to speak, for the United States and its military operations in the Southern Caribbean. She's offered up Trinidad and Tobago at their disposal. We know that we have this huge. We say it's not for drug interdiction, and most people most observers are not believing the drug interdiction story because it's a very thin veneer that the United States is presenting. But Grenada, you speak of dangers to Grenada. Um, why would it be a problem? People are saying, oh, Kamala Prasad Bissessar may end up being the survivor in all of this. Is she a traitor to the cause of sovereignty and Caribbean independence? Or is she the survivor, the smart one in the room who is getting into bed with the United States, given that country's power and the dependence of the region? That Grenada may well be shooting itself in the foot by not laying down belly up for the United States to use our airport as part
Grenada,
of its front line.
we in Grenada have done nothing wrong. We have broken no international law. We don't present ourselves as a threat to the United States. The foreign policy of Grenada for many, many years is conjoined to that of what was outlined by the TA Marichaux, that the Caribbean must be a zone of peace. And in the context of that foreign policy, as upheld by all of CORICOM with one exception, all right, it will be wise for Grenada to maintain that principle. As I said, we have done nothing wrong. We have threatened no one. We are not poised to breach the peace. Why ought we to aid and abet and facilitate the commission of the breach of international law against a sovereign country that has done the United States nothing? Right? All Venezuela has done is to sign an agreement for another nation to trade in its oil. That is all it has done. And that is the basis of this threat and this preparation for war. In fact, Trump said it. Trump said he would not have spent all of this time in Iraq. He would go in there, seize the oil, and get out. And that's precisely what he's pursuing now. So I'm saying we find ourselves in a position, if we agree to this, It is like, for example, I'm aware that you are going to rob the bank, and I give you permission to store your balaclava. I give you permission to store your gun and to store whatever you are going to use to get into the bank, hold up all the people, hold the customers hostages, beat up the cashiers, steal the money, and escape. Do you think I will be above reproach when that information came out that Humphrey was the place from which the guns, the mask, and all the other paraphernalia used in the robbery occurred? There are times in the life of men when you have to stand for something. The worst thing you can do in the face of a bully is to run. You will keep running forever. They say a coward dies 10 times beyond his death. We have done nothing wrong. We are a peace abiding country. We have supported all international laws, right? We have certain basic principles by which we stand. By which we stand. We like to call ourselves a Christian country. Sometimes there is a price for standing up to what is right. Sometimes there's a price for standing up to what is right.
Now, the United
And I
States
mean,
now is not
if we
offering
were to
us.
give them,
The United States now is
well,
going to.
look, look,
You do not
look,
believe, Chester, that this is security cooperation, but that Grenada is being forced into being complicit in the invasion of a neighbor.
no, no. Well, let me put
And
it to you this way: you can exercise your right not to cooperate. You can exercise your right. You have to make a decision, and I'm saying to join in the American invasion of Venezuela to me is an unpardonable sin which this country ought not to do. Just simply put, just simply put. And now let me say something. I am now beginning to understand that all these early moves against Grenada had nothing to do. The taking away of the visa rights, the visa privileges of the Minister of Finance, right? All of this was softening up the ground for what has come now. The threat to ban our fish from going into the United States is all part of softening up the ground, sending these messages to you. But as I say, the worst thing you can do for yourself is to run from a bully. You will never stop running. And this does not make a difference to the racist
the
policies
victimization becomes worse and
this
worse and
this
worse.
but this makes no difference to the racist policies falling out in the United States. ICE will still be rounding up Grenadians, whether you're lawful or not. They will still be detaining you. We are in a period where racism is re-emerging. It's re-emerging in Europe. It's re-emerging in the United States. It's re-emerging. Well, it has never really left places like Australia, right? Where the Aboriginal people were treated in the worst way. They were genocided. These government that has armed, set aside, encouraged, directed the genocide against the Palestinian people, where thousands of innocent children and women and men have been murdered, have been bombed. The Jews have been doing in the last 2 years to the Palestinians worse than what Hitler did to them, aided and abetted by the West, including the United States. So we have to
Now,
understand the
now
juncture we are in history. We
let
have
me
to
get let
understand.
me get in here now to ask you, how dangerous would it be should Grenada agree to this and to give up to the United States and allow military assets to be placed at Point Elizabeth International Airport, at Morris Bishop International Airport, temporarily or otherwise? What would be the danger that Grenada can face? Are there consequences? I hear people saying, well, we can be a target, and certainly Venezuela will no longer view us as a friend.
Well,
What are the
well, let
fallout?
me
What are
put
the
it to you,
consequences that you see?
but let me put it to you this way. If I'm approaching my home and a passing by vehicle opened fire on my home while I'm approaching it, and the car is speeding past me, and I have a firearm, I'll fire at the car. So I'm saying I can't speak for the Venezuelan government. I don't know what the Venezuelan government will do, but I'm saying the very fact that you have joined a nation in war, right, makes you a legitimate target. Simply put, it makes you a legitimate target. Simply put. And we should stay away from this. We should stay away from this. In the process of learning to walk, a baby falls several times. If at the first time of a fall, a baby refuses to get up, it will never walk. There are consequences for doing things that are right. Sometimes we are not engaged in a war. Venezuela has not done us anything. Venezuela has helped us. On a state to state basis, Venezuela has probably provided more help than the United States in recent years, right? Venezuela has provided work for generations of Grenadians. There are whole large communities in Maracaibo and other places made up of Grenadians. Why must we join in a war, somebody else's war? We are an independent state. We have done nothing wrong. We've done nothing wrong.
And so,
So it will be a grave stain on the history, a grave stain against the memory of our forefathers for us to join in a war against a state that has done us nothing,
it is
and a
also,
state that has helped us, a state that has helped us tremendously. There are 100 homes in La Colombe. Show me the equivalent that the Americans have built. Cuba has built an entire hospital for us and an international airport. Show me the equivalent that the Americans have built.
but even so, can can we need to show gratitude to those countries that have helped us. But at the end of the reality of the world, the geopolitical dynamic that we live in, can any small island truly act independently of great power influence? Can Grenada truly say no to the United States? I mean, we've seen, as you said, they were softening up the ground, a
It
visa restriction on our Minister of Finance, our fisheries export facing a ban come January 1, bullying us into changing our agreement and throwing Cuba under the bus on a decades long arrangement that we had with friendship arrangement that we had with Cuba on the medical brigade. So here we are now, and the question that may be asked is, how much more can they do to us? And do we make decisions of survival, or do we make decisions of sovereignty?
As I said to you before, we will be doing a grave injustice to the legacy of our forefathers if we facilitate the American invasion of a country. Venezuela has not declared war or threatened the United States. Venezuela has not provoked a war with the United States. The opposite is true. And I'm saying by giving the United States our facilities, and the irony is the very Morris Bishop Airport, which they accuse us of billing as an air base, is now being used by the very Americans. Cuba built us this international airport. It was always a civilian airport. I think what the
The
country
irony of the
needs is a
situation has not
massive.
escaped, yeah.
I think what this country needs is a massive peace movement. And I am prepared publicly to launch a call for all sectors of Grenadian society to openly come out in defiance and in support of peace, a national peace movement pursuing peace and non militarization of the Caribbean is the call of the time. This is a call of the time, which we must make a call for the nation to answer. It is not every time you must just surrender and roll over. Yes, I mean, this is a Christian country, and there are a lot of stories that one can draw on. David and Goliath, right? And we don't know consequentially what the United States is going to do. We are creating our own fears. We are simply principled, which is a position we must take a principled position and do what is right. Again, going back to the Christian roots of the country, you're going to deny Christ, won't you? This is what this would amount to. In the hour of need, you will deny Christ. This is what this amount to. We have done nothing wrong. We have no quarrel with Venezuela. Venezuela has no quarrel with us. If I stored the weapons that robbers use and I stored it willingly for them to carry out a robbery in the bank, and they did that robbery and people were killed in the process, you think I won't be prosecuted for aiding and abetting?
You
Well,
would
that's exactly
definitely
what
be.
we're going to be doing. And that's exactly what we will be doing, with the hope that the robbers might give me some money, or the hope that the robbers may not do X or not do Y. This is exactly what we will be doing. We'll be acting worse than a prostitute. We'll be prostituting ourselves. And I'm saying there come at a time when principle confronts you and you have to stand on what's right. Simple.
No, I have been told by experts and people who know about these things that a radar positioned in Grenada gives the Americans eyes and ears directly
Well,
into
well absolutely,
the southern corridor
absolutely,
of the
no,
Caribbean. Um,
absolutely. And it helps them to position their cruise missiles. It gains information from satellites, which it then feeds into other military assets, and it guides missiles accordingly. This is what I'm saying to you. We are aiding and abetting. And for those who are dumb, like the drunk in the South, who's repeating this nonsense that the Americans are here to stop drugs. I mean, what utter rubbish. How imbecilic could we be to believe that garbage? The
but I
Americans
mean,
are preparing to invade Venezuela. That's
the
the
fact
normal,
is that we
that's the
do
story.
have, but the fact is that there are a number of assets, radars, across the Caribbean as part of the drug interdiction cooperation arrangements that Grenada
Look,
and the rest of the region has with the United States. We already do. Here in Grenada, we already do have
Every
that.
every Caribbean country, including Grenada, has a coast guard of some size. These coast guards, from time to time, including the underfunded, undercapitalized Grenada Coast Guard, interdict people moving drugs. Right? You don't need a nuclear submarine or F-16 fighters and 4,000 Marines to interdict drugs on the sea. What are the Marines going to do? Swim out to these little pirogues? I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, we are being made a fool of. And what is sad is that we can have a drunk at a particular level repeating this garbage
You know,
and pretending to believe it.
I
And
want
what
to
is
turn
worse,
my
pretending to
attention
believe it.
now. I want to turn my attention now to the statement that was issued by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, saying that Grenada is carefully considering the request.
Well,
And they
okay,
went on to talk about legal considerations and protection of our tourism industry and so. But does
well,
but
well,
the fact that the
I
government says considering and not that we have received this request and Grenada has said we cannot for various reasons, but that we are considering. Does that raise any concern for you? The language of this statement that we are
very,
actually
very much
considering
so.
this.
Very much so. It's a diplomatic, it's a diplomatic way of saying, and I won't be surprised if the government has not already given that permission. It's just a diplomatic way of saying that, in other words, on a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, I think the government of Grenada is 9.999. The
Do you
statement is
think this call?
almost a formal concession. The statement is almost a formal revelation that the Grenada government has conceded to this, which is a grave mistake in my view. I understand the complications, but there are times in the life of people when they have to stand on principle. When something is wrong, it's wrong. When something
Some,
is
some
wrong, it's
some
wrong.
people say, we can't eat principle, and we can't eat dignity, and we can't eat sovereignty. This is some of the sentiments expressed by those who believe that Grenada is powerless in the face of this request by the United States. What do you say to people
I
like
don't
that?
believe Grenada is powerless. Grenada can stand on
To
its
those who
principles.
believe that
If
we are.
a Grenada can stand on its principles, if its leadership has the rectitude so to do, if they are persuaded by the moral correctness of their stance, the moral correctness of their stance. As I said to you before, and you did pose the question whether or not there's a risk to Grenada of being a recipient of retaliatory reaction. Well, quite rightly so. I'm not saying that Venezuela would do that. I don't know. I mean, I feel very much because a lot of innocent people will be killed. Although I believe the Americans are planning a surgical strike, the same way as it did with Noriega. That's what they're planning. And so, as I said, taking out of the picture is all this bull about interdicting drugs, right? So we can expect within the next few weeks, and I believe that military offensive is, if not days away, if not days away, right? And it is all about blocking Venezuela from selling the oil that belongs to it to another state that is prepared to pay and doesn't have to pay in American dollars.
So
That is what this is all about.
should we agree to this? Grenada will be, in effect, participating and enabling and facilitating regime change in Caracas.
Well, absolutely, with the possibility that several civilians and other people will be killed in a matter in which we have absolutely we are not involved. We'd have no quarrel with Venezuela. Venezuela has done us nothing. We have done Venezuela nothing. We haven't done Venezuela anything. The relationship between Venezuela and Grenada is one of friendship. So why are we joining with another state to wage war against a people and a country that has done us nothing? I mean, if Venezuela, for example, had attacked the United States, and by the way, let me just say this: the Venezuelans have foiled a plot to firebomb or bomb the American embassy, another attempt to give the US an excuse. Venezuela has done nothing of that sort. They have not threatened the United States, either
Is it
verbally or otherwise. In
is
the
it
face
I-
of all of this, President Maduro has been calling for talks. And I think our position simply should be that look, we believe and adhere to the fundamental principle of the Caribbean must be a zone of peace. If you have problems with Venezuela, we offer ourselves to probably mediate whatever difficulties you all have. But we cannot put our country at risk. We cannot join in a military adventure against a country that has done us nothing.
a friendly country, a friendly neighbor? Is it
And a
time for
friendly.
St. George's? Is it time for Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, wherever in the world he might be at this time, to convene a meeting of his counterparts in CARICOM and the OECS to seek some advice, to talk to some people?
Well,
Should Grenada
I would,
reach out?
I, I would hate to believe that this hasn't already happened. I would hate to believe that, as a matter of fact, we should not have waited until the Americans make a request. From the time we see, and it's weeks now, the Americans are building up, just as how they did before the invasion of Grenada. They are moving assets, B 1 bombers, and other instruments into Puerto Rico. They have massive American transport planes in Trinidad. But Trinidad is a sovereign state. It can make the decision as it sees fit. Right? It can make the decision as it sees fit. That's Trinidad's business. I mean, we are quite weighed down, and it puts on its head the struggle for the return of Chaguaramas. When we think of the nationalist movement led by Dr. Eric Williams, right, and the movement he led for the end of America's control of Chaguaramas, to have a future prime minister turning over not just Chagaramas, but the whole of Trinidad. I mean, but that's a right. The people elected the government. The government has the sovereign power as the government of the state to make whatever decisions it feels fit to make,
But but but
including
but but still, but still, Chester, do you view this as a serious blow to the movements of the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s when Caribbean leaders were standing
well,
for
let me tell
independence
you,
and sovereignty
it
when they
is it
opposed the
is it
invasion
is
of Grenada, with the exception of Tom Adams and Eugenia Charles? Are we, is this a
and
real step
Siaga
backward?
and Siaga
And
and so on.
Siaga,
Well,
yeah.
it's a grave step backward. And we have to see what's unfolding because this stuff is not only happening in the Caribbean. In the United States, they are dismantling affirmative action. They are reinstating racism. They are abolishing the history of black people. I mean, a whole comprehensive program of returning Make America Great Again is the code word for going back to Jim Crow. They're rounding up thousands of our people, deporting them, sending them to foreign countries. And the ICE is picking you up. People are disappearing in the United States. You don't know who's picking you up. You just see people with hoods come, beat you, tie you up on the ground. They ship you off. This is what's unfolding in the United States. We cannot separate all of these things. So we are living in a period, and the worst thing we can do is to scatter for ourselves. This is the worst. What we need to do is an intensification of CARICOM unity, and Grenada should be at the forefront of it. We've led that before. Tia Marichaud was the epitome of Caribbean unity, Caribbean Federation. Caribbean Federation was the spirit of Tia Marichaud. Grenada occupied a proud place. Tia Marichaud led the Caribbean delegation to go to the UK to put an end to colonialism. I mean, even Eric Gary, in his own way, all his latter years, he went off the rail. He was anti-colonialist. For us to be engaged now, I mean, really, it's sad. It's sad in the face of our people being rounded up like a hog within the United States. Once you're black, they're rounding you up. I mean, the Trump racism is so blatant that we will now join with Trump. That's what we are doing. We are joining with Trump. We are hiding Trump's weapons so that he could commit a robbery. Because that is what it is. The overthrow of the Maduro government is a case of robbery because what Trump wants is their oil.
And we are running
And he
out
has
of time.
imposed all kinds of sanctions.
We are running out of time, but I want to just put this to you as we close this segment. Understanding, of course, that this has very little to do with a drug interdiction and all about a regime change, and oil it is the general thinking and the general belief, and the evidence does not say otherwise. But in the Grenada situation, we are looking at October. We are looking at the Morris Bishop International Airport. We are looking at Venezuela. We are looking at a United States that
All how ironic.
is it
All
is
all of this, how ironic.
mm,
How ironic that in the month of October the Americans are back again.
they're back again seeking to use the Morris Bishop International Airport for the very purpose that they had condemned it for, calling it a military installation and a base that would give the Russians access from the
But
Southern Caribbean into their territory.
I trace for you the history of lies, right? The history of lies that the United States has used over time to declare and go to war against other people. I gave you a very brief, succinct summary of the American body of lies, right? And this is just the latest one. This is just the latest lie.
Can, can,
Remember
can,
the
can,
weapons
can,
of mass
can,
destruction?
can
Remember the
Maduro
weapons of mass destruction?
Can President Maduro defend his position against any sort of strike by the U.S., Or do we see Venezuela go and the way of the Panamas and the Noriegas and some of the other strikes and
I, I, I,
actions?
I, I, I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
But from what we are seeing on the news, Venezuela is preparing to defend its sovereignty, right? Other countries have defended their sovereignty against the United States. Vietnam is a classic example of that, defended their sovereignty against the United States, right? So the Venezuelan people are preparing. Thousands are joining the militia, but the Americans, of course, have more weaponry and more sophistication, right? Venezuela does have an air force, but it is no match for the United States. And this is why I'm saying the call of the times is for a national peace movement. And I'm making this call for all sectors of Grenadian society to get involved in the call for a national peace movement, right? And to call on the government, to give the government all the support that is possible for the government to stand on principle. This is not a period for condemning the government. It's a very difficult decision to make, right? And in respect of this issue, Grenadians must rally around the call for peace and for an end to the militarization of the Caribbean. The call for the Caribbean to be a zone of peace is the call of the moment. Is it imperative? It's an imperative of the moment for which all conscious patriotic Grenadians should rally, including all the churches, including all the political parties. There should be no division on this. We should rally and call for the support of peace and to have our country not to participate in any military activity against a neighbor, particularly as that neighbor has done us nothing.
Nothing wrong. And Grenada, in the words of Morris Bishop, is nobody's backyard. Chester Humphrey, thank you so much for joining me on The Narrative to discuss this developing topic. As
Nice.
it continues to
Thank
develop,
you
we
very
will be
much.
happy to have you back on to get your thoughts on this matter.
Thank
Thank you so
you
much.
very much. And I use the opportunity to express my solidarity with the government and people and ruling party of Venezuela. Thank you.
This is The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. That was Chester Humphrey speaking there, a trade unionist, leading trade unionist in the Caribbean, and speaking on the situation between Venezuela and the United States. The United States eyeing Caracas. Some say the intention is regime change and has nothing to do with drug interdiction. Grenada being thrown into the middle of this, some believe, by the U.S. requesting that military assets be placed at the country's international airport, the Morris Bishop International Airport. That has created a firestorm of opposition, although some support it and believe that Grenada has no power in the geopolitical dynamics that exist, but to say yes to the United States. Grenada saying that it is carefully considering the request. It has not said yes, it has not said no, but certainly some believe that considering the request is virtually a yes from St. George's. And there have been calls for demonstrations. Chester Humphrey himself here in this interview calling for a movement of peace in St. George, in Grenada, so that people can come out and let the government know how they're feeling, what they are thinking about the situation, which if the United States does place assets here and uses those assets to gain insights and to strike against Venezuela, puts Grenada in complicity with the invasion of Venezuela, a situation that no one really wants to see. Back in a moment, I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier.
Show them the way I